can.
All right. So we're live in the next 10. Yeah.
Count us down, please. Good. Count us down.
5. It's on.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first online MSME Customer Engagement Forum organized by the Bank of Industry. Bank of Industry is Nigeria's foremost development finance institution. And the theme for today's webinar, which is our very first, is thriving in the new normal, economic and business outlook. This promises to be the best 45 minutes of your life spent, both for yourself and about your business. In the course of growing your business, we realize that we need to be very proactive in, given what is happening right now. And the bank, considering the needs of its MSME's customers, deemed it fit to rise to the occasion to support the peculiar needs of this special customer segment through this webinar. Well, we have resource persons from outside the bank and within the bank. Let me start by telling you about our ground rules today. We would like to implore everybody to please mute their microphones. Also, if your bandwidth is not strong enough, we'll implore you to please switch off your videos and just listen to the audio. This webinar will be recorded and it will be sent out to everybody on this forum. If there are any questions, we have just, if you look below, you're going to see the Q&A box. You can type in your questions. If need be, you can actually indicate whom you want to answer the question. It can be our resource person or our outside resource person or our internal resource person. Without further ado, let me introduce our resource persons to you. The first person is Dr. B.Adedipe. Dr. Biodun is known for his hard work, dedication, and commitment to developing robust economic planning strategy for Nigeria, even international development agencies. He's a member of several professional strategy groups in Nigeria, including the Nigerian Economic Society, the American Economic Society, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, CIBN of Nigeria. Dr. Esotu holds a doctorate in economics and has illustrious career spanning over 2 decades, advising agencies on economic policies, growth, and development. Dr. Esotu, I'm very sure, will wow you today. Also joining Dr. Esotu is our Executive Director, SME, ably represented. Our Executive Director, Mr. Omar Shekarau, is ably represented by Dr. Rislanudeen. Dr. Rislanudeen is the General Manager, Small and Medium Enterprises, Northern Operation of the Bank of Industry. Dr. Rislanudeen holds a doctorate degree in economics from the ABU, Bayero University in Kano, and is a fellow of the Association of Enterprise Risk Management Professionals and the Nigerian Institute of Fiscal Studies. He's also an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. Dr. Rislanudeen has over 33 years experience in budget and economic planning, credit and operation, retail and commercial banking, investment management, risk management, human resources, amongst others. He currently oversees the operations of 14 offices of the Bank of Industry through the northern part of the country. So those of you that are joining us from the north, I can tell you that you're in good hands. And we also have Mr. Mike Esotu. He's the Deputy General Manager, Small and Medium Enterprises. He actually takes care of the southern operation of the Bank of Industry. He oversees operations of 13 offices of the Bank of Industry that caters for the needs of SMEs and customers in the southern part of the country. Without further ado, let me call on Dr. Rislanudeen, who is representing the Executive Director, SME, Mr. Omar Shekarau, to please give us his opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Hadiza. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, our customers, our colleagues who are pulling up and watching and listening to this important program. Recall that at the outset of coronavirus pandemic, somewhere in Wuhan, China, in December 2019, nobody knew that the world will completely change by March, to the extent that countries locked themselves up. People were running helter-skelter. Everybody wants to go home as if it is the end of the world. And the economic and political effect of this disease is particularly incisive. Most importantly, the lockdowns have devastated economies, have affected health, has affected businesses, and we are just beginning to recover, to the extent that both the World Bank and the IMF projected that the entire world economy will sink into recession from the beginning of 2020. There may be some level of recoveries from 2021, like most African economies were projected to recover from 2021 and beyond, but there is a lot of pessimism on so many other countries, our trade partners. And for an economy like Nigeria, that is hugely import dependent, that is relying so much on export business, monoproduct, this pandemic has really opened up an opportunity for us to really look at how we can inwardly support our businesses, develop our economies, and begin also to think about how we can leverage on the agreement reached on AFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area, to support the general business across African economies. We know that so many of those economies, so many of those businesses have been challenged. Many have either shut down, many have gotten into challenges relating to payment of loans, relating to issues relating to maintaining existing customers. Some have to send their staff away, some will have to shut down because of all these challenges. Now that we are opening up, Bank of Industry is there to support those businesses, to complement the significant stride that the federal government of Nigeria has been making towards ensuring that we get a very fast, more of a V-shaped recovery. We are going to have discussions today. First, inwardly, I will do a presentation, and subsequently, Dr. Adedipe, who is somebody that, like Hadiza said, known across the industry. He is a very brilliant economist, somebody I have known for over 2 decades, and he's going to discuss on these challenges, thriving in a new normal. We know that we are now getting into a new normal environment. It is not something that there is a disease and it is off. It will take a lot of time. We have not even gotten a vaccine. There is a lot of politics over vaccine. We have not even gotten it. Even if we have gotten it, it has not reached our shores. And we still have to survive. We cannot continue to lock ourselves. And if we cannot lock ourselves up, we have to find a way in which we can optimally operate without compromising our health. And Dr. Adedipe, I'm sure, is going to do a lot of justice to his presentation on specifically issues relating to thriving in new normal, with emphasis on economic and political outlook. And I do hope that at the end of the day, at the end of our discussion, at the end of this session, both Bank of Industry staff, MSME customers, and invited members of the public that are participating will be better informed as to how we can be able to operate our businesses within this new normal environment. We'll also be better informed as to how we can leverage on existing situation to grow our businesses. And for us in a Bank of Industry, will be ever ready to continue to complement the effort of the government to ensure that businesses thrive, to ensure that jobs are created, to ensure that our economy grow for the benefit of all of us. I wish all of us a very fruitful discussions, and I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So I'll quickly call on Dr. Biodun, who is going to make his presentation, which is Thriving in the New Normal Economic and Business Outlook, before we come back to Dr. Mohammed Rislanudeen, who is going to be talking about recap of BOI's interventions, palliative measures, forward-looking initiatives, and others. Thank you very much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say a very big thank you to the management of Bank of Industry, as well as the Directorate of SME in the bank for having me as a guest speaker at this customer engagement webinar. And as Dr. Rislanudeen said earlier on, clearly we all have found ourselves in the new normal. When we saw the close of 2019, and in fact began our conversations in 2020 at the beginning, we thought it was going to be a new year and a new decade that brings promises of prospects. Nobody ever imagined that we'll find ourselves in the situation we are today. So I'm going to share my slides so that everyone can follow my presentation. And I want to again say a very big thank you for having me here. So now, what I'm talking about is thriving in the new normal. We're all now in the new normal, but how do we thrive in this new normal? So we look at the economic and business outlook, and then of course, the strategies for survival of MSMEs. Now the outline will run like this, and I intend to do that within the next 45 minutes, as had been mentioned earlier by the moderator. So we look at the dimensions of COVID-19 disruptions, then the market environment. China, of course, was where the trouble started. They were the first also to respond to that by shutting down their economy. They turned out to also be the first to reopen their economy. So what lessons can we learn from that? Especially for those of us in small and medium scale enterprises, micro, small and medium scale enterprises. Then what are those things that will happen in the market where you do business? Because the whole essence of business, of course, is to create solutions to people's problems. And then as you do that, they now see what you are presenting as the true solution to their problem, and then they buy. So what are the challenges that are coming up now in terms of the market where we sell our products? Then we now look at three important things which BOI actually says are the takeaways from this. How do you survive the environment, COVID-19 and post-COVID-19? How do you adapt to the challenges that are facing all of us? And then how do you recover from that and thrive? And ultimately, I will summarize with do what the market says. Now, I decided to bring this slide first, and that is, if you are not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with anything original. That statement is credited to Sir Ken Robinson. But the whole idea is that in the environment we are now, things have changed significantly. We went to bed end of 2019. We woke up at the beginning of this year with very high hopes. But by the end of March, everything changed all over the world. So if we want to come up with anything original, that is, will make us to thrive in the new normal, then we must be ready to try so many things and then get it right eventually. So what are the dimensions, the disruptions happening all around the world? This particular acronym VUCA is very popular. Everybody is talking about this all around the world. In fact, nearly every other day in the week, I have reason to engage with people variously, talking about this for government agencies in Nigeria, outside Nigeria. In fact, so 3 days ago, people came from, I think, about 12 countries to a forum where we discussed issues related to this. So the first is volatility, which is to say things are changing so rapidly that if anyone is going to survive and thrive in this environment, you must come to understand that reality that we cannot do things today the way we did them yesterday. All right, then there is also uncertainty. Uncertainty simply means here that we don't have the critical information. So, of course, we have knowledge of cause and effect. We know the cause of the problem we are facing. It started as a health problem, but today it has gone to become economic crisis. From there, it became humanitarian crisis, and then ultimately became a security crisis. So all over the world, governments, companies, citizens are all facing challenges of uncertainty. Then complexity means that things are happening in a way that it is so difficult to put it all together and understand what is happening. And then ambiguity means many issues are very vague. Just like Dr. Rislanudeen said earlier on. Now, there are still so many, experiments all around the world on how to find an effective vaccine. And as he remarked also, even that process has been politicized. So what we have now found ourselves is we have moved from the complicated to the complex and then to chaos. So we now say that that is the welcome to the new normal. So how does it appear? Now we had a conversation with some of our German partners some 2 months ago, and one of them showed us this particular slide. So I borrowed that. That's Dr. Pistol. And he said, we can look at the entire situation in this manner. When things were going very well, everything about business was simple. 1 + 1 was equal to 2. You wake up in the morning, you take your breakfast, no stress. You can actually talk about best practice in your type of business, all right? Then we moved from there, disorder came, and things became complicated. When there is complication, at that time, it seems that, yes, 1 + 1 will still be equal to 2. They're very difficult to get because you now need experts support and advice. You bring in experts to analyze the situation for you, tell you what this means and how it's going to work out, tell you also what you have to do. Then you come up with what we call a blueprint. So in that blueprint, you say, yeah, this is good practice. That's a complicated environment. But once we move from complicated to complex, everything changes. Because when the situation is complex, all you can say is that the solution to the problem we are looking at here is somewhere out there, but we don't know where it is. We don't really know what the solution is to this problem. So at that instance, everybody is experimenting. There are no good answers. And of course, we're all learning how to play, just like it's happening to all of us now. So we then talk about emerging practice. But when you now come to chaos, and that is what COVID-19 has done to all of us around the world. In the case of chaos, hell breaks loose, and the first thing is that, what is the meaning of all this? Okay, do I close my business, or should I begin to engage and look for those who can give me ideas, and of course, where I can get help and support, so that we come up with a new way of doing it. So we call it novel practice. Which the way you run your business now will be different from the way you ran it in 2019 and even in the early months of 2020. So then, what has happened all over the world? I put this particular slide together as a picture of the major global economic challenges and implications of the COVID-19. The first, as I said earlier on, is pervasive VUCA disruption. It's happened all around the world. Demand shock is a terminology that economists use. What does it mean? It simply means that there are certain things you need to buy, but unfortunately, you don't get them to buy. And of course, in terms of supply as well, there's supply shock. Those who produce also are unable to get what they are producing to those who need them. So it happens on both sides. Yes, you need face masks, for example, but you can't get to buy face masks when you need them. That's a shock. Now, the person who also produces is unable to move the items produced to those that want to buy. That's also supply shock. Then inflation shock. Prices are going up anyhow because people don't get enough of what they need. So just as you commonly say in economy, the basics of it says inflation is simply explained as a situation where there is so much money chasing after so few goods and services. So there is inflation shock in some countries around the world. We're experiencing that in Nigeria now. Inflation rate in Nigeria has been going up. Okay. There's also deflation shock in some other places. In which case, prices are going down every day. And that again is also a concern. Just think about your own business. If you produce something that you want to sell, and those that want to buy for you say, look, okay, we are ready to buy you, but you have to reduce your price. So at that instance, if that happens to everybody within the economy, then there will be the worry about deflation shock. And of course, supply chain simply means that the process of getting products from the factory to the consumer became disrupted. Some sectors totally collapsed. Hospitality, tourism, aviation, luxury goods, even businesses, like Dr. Rislanudeen said earlier on, job losses in some companies. Many companies also had diminished capacity to meet maturing obligations. Then global economic recession. It is expected, as projected by IMF this year, that the world economy is going to shrink by 4.9%. But the pattern will vary across the entire world. USA is mentioned there in my slides because that is the largest economy in the world. It will shrink by 8%. China, of course, will grow by 1%. China is the second largest economy in the world. So it will grow by 1%. That, in fact, is a major minus for the entire global economy. And the reason is because the Chinese economy has grown consistently for well over 20 years for at 10% per annum. And then recently, in the last 2 years, 3 years, it has been growing at around 7%. In fact, last year, it grew at 6.67%. Then the euro area, that is Europe, will shrink by 10.2%. Nigeria is projected by IMF to shrink by 5.4%. And of course, South Africa by 8%. That's the story all around the world. So the challenge now is that all around the world, every government is looking inwards. If we all depended on China before COVID-19, and suddenly, even what China was producing could not get to us on the one hand, and also China, remember I mentioned, was the first to lock down its economy. When they locked down, that meant the things we needed here, they were not producing, and so we could not get them. So many countries therefore started looking inwards. Japan started that process, US followed, United Arab Emirates followed, of course Nigeria is doing the same, okay? Every other country around the world. So everybody is looking inwards. And that is why some of us have also been telling our government and policymakers that this is the time for us to look inwards, but particularly intervene in the micro, small scale enterprise, medium scale enterprises sector of the economy. Now, this slide talks about developing countries, and Nigeria, of course, is a developing country. All of them have peculiarities, and the illustration I gave here is to make reference to 6 key things that happen in our environment. Because when you run a business and environment, it is very, very important for you to understand that environment, because that is how you will find the opportunities existing in that. Number one about developing countries, they are resource dependent. Now, that means that they depend on a particular item or at most 2 or 3 for most of their foreign earnings. And I gave 2 examples here. Our own country, Nigeria, we depend on oil, that is crude oil, condensate. Condensate is like when you are boiling water on fire, and then it gets to the boiling point, it starts to bring up, vapor. So when you hear condensate in crude oil production, that is oil in the form of vapor. It is called condensate. They also sell that, okay? There is now associated gas. All of those 3 put together represent what we call hydrocarbons, and they represent 87% of Nigeria's foreign earnings. And of course, 67% of what also comes in addition to what we earn is from portfolio investors who come to invest their money in our stock market, and whenever they say there is trouble, they carry their money and they run away. That's Nigeria's case. How about Bangladesh? Bangladesh also exports to the rest of the world, mostly to Europe and to USA. But what do they export mainly? Garments, okay? Now, the garments export represent 84% of the foreign earnings of Bangladesh. So when this crisis came, they were unable to export their garments to Europe and to the USA. So their economy began to struggle. To even make it worse, the monsoon rain in their own region that hit Bangladesh about 3-4 weeks ago covered 1/3 of the country. So for them, it is double trouble. Most developing countries are also highly indebted. But what we have seen around the world happening by different governments is that nobody is talking about how much we are borrowing. Governments all over the world are borrowing to solve the problem that was caused by COVID-19. So that is why I'm one of those that advise our federal government to forget about any talk about whether government has borrowed so much or not. I said to the presidency in the memo I said about 8 weeks ago that look, borrow as much as you can find anywhere to solve the problem of health created by COVID-19 and also to ensure that our economy doesn't collapse. Then comes to our own space, MSMEs, the informal sector. Now, the informal sectors, we also reminded the government, represents, like any other developing countries, a large portion of the economy. In fact, in Nigeria, it is said that about 54% of our GDP is accounted for by the informal sectors and for the MSMEs. So what we therefore tell government is that, look, MSMEs represent large proportions of our GDP, just like it does for other developing countries. In fact, when the National Bureau of Statistics about 2-3 months ago brought out some data, they said if you do head count in terms of number, that small medium-scale enterprises in manufacturing account for more than 99% in terms of head count. Okay, so that the big ones in terms of number are so few, and that they represent less than 1% of the total number. But of course, going from there also, we talk about large populations. Most developing countries have large populations. But what we have also learned is that large population is no longer a burden. From the example we have seen in China, okay? China has the largest population in the world, but the thinking in those about 30 years ago was that, oh, with the large population, China will soon run into a problem because they won't be able to feed their people. But as of today, the story is different, because the critical thing is not how large the population is, it is how many of them can we bring from below the poverty line to above the poverty line, which is why your sector is very, very important. Because all over the world, MSMEs are the ones that create most of the jobs. They also are the ones that, therefore, in the process, put money in people's pockets. And as people also begin to spend, they become empowered and they cause the economy to grow. So the focus, therefore, now all over the world is how do we empower MSMEs? In fact, what the US government has done is to look at those who are self-employed and said, look, apart from those that collect dole, as they call it, that is those who are unemployed and file for unemployment, which was the record between March and April, was 22.4 million in the US, people that lost their jobs because of COVID-19. As at June end and early July, only 9.2 million jobs have been recovered. And so the key issue then is that how do we ensure that more of this population come from below to above the poverty line? And the key to that is the MSMEs, which is why Bank of Industry is doing this. Then, of course, high poverty incidence. Okay, it's also very common with developing countries. Each time people make reference, oh, Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world, I tell them, no, that is very, very wrong. It's incorrect. Because I get a lot of data and information about some Asian countries. Poverty in Asia is more endemic than it is here. And of course, some 2 years ago, when some Americans came to do the public a study, that is Brookings Institution of New York in the US, and they said 80% of Nigerians are below the poverty line. I challenged them and said, tell me, where did you do your survey? Did you consider the MSMEs? Did you consider the informal sectors, what they are doing, the number of jobs they are creating, and what is happening? Those data that are not captured. I said, tell me where you conducted the survey. Who were those you interviewed? Who are those that completed the questionnaires? Till today, no response. Until our own National Bureau of Statistics now did their own study and came out with a figure that is just half of what they said. Even though half is still a challenge. And that is the whole essence of what BOI is doing today. That if your own sector is strengthened, Nigeria might just find redemption in that. So, question, how did our economy look like as at the end of March this year? By next week, Wednesday, we will have the public data on how our economy looked like at the end of June this year. That's on August 26th. So we expect NBS to bring out the data. So for now, we can only talk about what we have as official data. As at the end of March this year, agriculture accounted for 22% of our GDP. That means if you look at the value of the goods and services produced and provided within our boundaries in Nigeria, 22% of that value created was in the agri sector. So what that tells you then is that agri is very important to the Nigerian economy. And that will also make you understand why government is giving so much attention to agriculture, all right? Then we have mining and quarrying, 9.5%. That's where oil is. And this is something I want to also make you understand. Now, when you talk about jobs created and value created locally within our economy. Oil is very small there. Oil accounts for less than 10% of the value created within the Nigerian economic space. But when you now take the other side, okay, relating with the rest of the world, what we sell to them, what we buy from them. Oil then brings up his head and says, I am the one responsible for the bulk of what you sell to the rest of the world. And so I'm the one that brings dollars and other currencies to you to pay for anything that you import. That's the importance of oil. When we talk about creating jobs, I mean, the oil economy we say is not very good at job creation. You then can also see why Bank of Industry is putting so much effort in your own sector. Of course, manufacturing 9.7%. Then you see trade there 16.1%. You will also see on this chart ICT, that is information communication technology, which is of course the essence of what we are doing now. If ICT was not strong, we can't be doing this now, because all of us are in different locations within Nigeria. Maybe some people even join from outside Nigeria. Okay, that is facilitated by information communication technology. All right, it also accounts for 14.1% of our GDP, and they've been growing. All right, then also real estate 5.2%. Why did I, single out those six? Very simple. Those six sectors in the last 10 years have accounted for between 77% and 82% of our GDP. So that means if we want to grow our economy and create jobs, we should be giving attention to those sectors and then look also at enablers, and that is education, human health, and social services. Even though they don't create more value in terms of what we measure naira and kobo, but they are fundamental and important. And then we also talk about infrastructure. For different governments in Nigeria over the last 35 to 36 years, I've told them variously. I had an engagement yesterday and I was referring to incidences 1983, 1987, 1989, 1993, 94, 95, up till date. And somebody asked me, how old are you? I said, well, it's really not about my age. Yes, I'm above 60 years of age, quite all right. I said, but it's not about age. It's about taking so much interest in the country that I belong to, and I want to see things work in Nigeria. And what I've told successive governments over the years is that it is important for us to also fix infrastructure. So in which case, education, health services, infrastructure. That will enable MSMEs to do business wherever they are in Nigeria. Okay, so that is the critical thing. So now, let's move forward. What now are the lessons we learned from China when they began to reopen their economy? The first thing we learned from them is that digital tools have become increasingly popular solutions, like the platform on which Bank of Industry has placed us today. Okay, it is a digital platform. Then there's also declining global exposure, which means in many countries, people are looking more inwards in terms of what they produce and what they consume. Each time they ask me, how do we solve the problem of Nigeria? I say very simple. Let's begin to consume what we produce. In fact, you see the dress of our moderator today, Hadiza. You see that what she's wearing is what you can simply say is made in Nigeria. Even if the fabric is imported, it's somebody in Nigeria that put it together in a beautiful form in what she's wearing. So there is Nigerian content in that. If I was tempted to also wear something made in Nigeria, but I said, well, this is a platform. So my wife said, why don't you dress formal? That was why I now went for tie and shirt and my suit. Ordinarily, I wanted to wear made in Nigeria because I'm an apostle of made in Nigeria. I found that that's where the problem is. And that is why MSMEs are so important, because they produce mostly what we consume. If we now also, as a people, consume what they produce, then there will be a connection and they'll begin to create jobs. All right. So most consumers also, and it's important to take away from this slide, most consumers, we say, have come of age. What does that mean? They are becoming more prudent and also health conscious. That means most consumers now, they no longer spend their money anyhow like they used to do. So in which case, we also must look carefully at what we are selling. How will that appeal to our consumers? Maybe at some point you may need to reduce your prices a little bit, but I will talk about that shortly. But we are talking about what has happened in China. The same thing was documented as happening in the US and other countries that have reopened. Even in our country here, the same thing has happened. So what then are those things you must pay attention to? Just like Dr. Rislanudeen said earlier on, with the Nigerian economy reopening, we are still reopening it. For example, aviation just opened, and government said by 29th of August we'll open to international flights. So we are still in the process of reopening, okay? So now, the first thing is that lifestyle has changed. Social distancing, personal hygiene rules, wash your hand with soap and water, do that for 20 seconds, and do that frequently. It wasn't like that before COVID-19. People also talk about work-life balance. There's also remote working, which we call work from home. Now, my own office has been closed down since March 26th, even before the government locked down the economy, okay? And when the government reopened the space, only 2 of our staff, admin staff, go to the office. The rest of us still work from home. And like some companies around the world have said, we told ourselves because we can work from home, given the nature of our business, we work from home throughout this year 2020 and return to the office January 2021. Okay? That lifestyle change also means what most people now buy are essentials. So if what you produce is a non-essential, then you have to think through on how to make it attractive to people to buy. The pent-up economic energy, when there was lockdown, people didn't have access to most of what they needed. But now there's a reopening, so people now begin to go everywhere. In fact, the way I put it is that people will go everywhere in search of food and basic needs. All right, so you need to also prepare yourself that in the new normal, consumer spending has declined, yes, but people also shift now to online purchases and e-commerce, and we'll talk about that shortly. In fact, the evidence from China says 50% of Chinese buyers buy what they consume online. So in which case, how do you put what you are selling to people on the internet? Use the internet. Many of us have Facebook accounts, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn and several other social media. But the question I always ask MSME owners, what are you doing with your Facebook page? Are you using it to pass information to people that will buy your product? It shouldn't be all about social engagement, okay? You can use these things also to promote your business by letting those your contacts know what you produce and what you sell. That is now the new normal, okay? Of course, that also means your business is becoming digitized. Digitization is simply making sure people know about what to produce and what to sell online. And once you do that Facebook, you do that on Instagram, you do it on any social media, you're already digitizing your business. And of course, we now come to the final part of my presentation, and that is to ask a simple question. You know, there's this joke about consultants. I'm a consultant, okay, by profession. The joke is simply that if you call a consultant now, if we ask you to lend him your wristwatch so that he can tell you the time, which means it's adding no value. But what we say now is that a consultant should be someone that will come to you and look at the time, even if he borrows your wristwatch to check what the time is. But what we do is to tell you what you should be doing at this time of the day. In which case it tells you the time now is 10:39. All right. So what should you be doing, business owner, business manager, at this time of the day? And that's essentially what BOI has brought before you today, the final part of my presentation. Now, the first question is, what MSMEs should do to survive? How will your company survive COVID-19? There are two major parts to it. The first is to intensify digitization, which I just talked about. You must embark on what you call end-to-end value digitization. That means, how do people get to know about your business? You use the internet, Facebook and the rest of them to make them know. That's number one. The second part is it possible for you to actually sell to them online? That is, people can make their orders online, okay? And if they make their orders online, you produce. Is it possible now to deliver to them and they also pay you online? So you should begin to think about that. So anything that can be done online in your business, whether receiving orders from buyers or getting buyers to pay, make sure you take all of that as much as possible So the only thing that you have to do will be anything that cannot be done except physically, which you mean to produce within your factory if you're a manufacturer, and then to now organize to get it to the consumer. So then, of course, this is a time, ladies and gentlemen, you have to maximize the information and data that you have on customers. This did not matter before COVID-19, but this has become so important. Every customer you have, there are certain things you know about them. If you check your past records, if you have been keeping records, the way BOI has been doing for us, you know, in some other forum in the past, if you have been keeping proper records, there are some customers you will know when they buy. There are some of them that buy from you on a monthly basis. You probably will have an idea of which day or week of the month they normally buy. There are some that buy from you annually. You will know the time of the year that they buy. So when that time is approaching, you don't wait for the time to arrive. Before it approaches, you get information out to them that you have this product, you have improved on what you sold to them the other time, and all of that. So they need to get to know. Then you need to check your business model. Let me explain that to you. There's a difference between strategy and business model. You need to understand this to be successful in business. Strategy is about the choice of what to do, that is what you produce and sell, okay? The second thing is whom you are producing it for. That is, you must understand your customer. Whom am I selling to, okay? The third one is to know where is that customer, because where the customer is will determine what you need to get your product to him or her. Then you need to also now talk about the price. This customer I'm thinking about, will he be able to afford the price at which I'm selling my product? And then how do I get information to this customer that I have this product? Very, very important. So you put all of this together. That is your strategy. But your business model simply says, we have made a choice to do this particular thing and do it in a particular way. How do we make money out of it? So business model is thinking about how to make money out of what you are doing. So we often put it this way in business, that every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, if anyone is in business, this you must never forget. We say it this way: cash is king. Cash is king. That means, how do I ensure I get more money into my company? And when the money comes in, how do I ensure that I manage it well, that it doesn't run away? Then, the second important thing to survive COVID-19 is communication. You must communicate a lot more with your customers, communicate a lot more with your employees, let them know the reality. For example, in our company, when we were to lock down on March 26th, on March 25th, we had a meeting with all the employees. Not a big company, we are less than 20 in number. So but what we did was, we all agreed and said, look, from what we are seeing here happening all over the world, very soon, the government in Nigeria may also lock down. So, but to protect ourselves from the health problems here, we close our business, we won't come to work from tomorrow, we work from home. But ladies and gentlemen, cash is king in business. And from the look of things, if money doesn't come in, what we have available cannot last us for longer than 2 months paying salaries. First, we ensure we paid our rent to carry us till March next year. And we made some other payments, so no outstanding. But we now said, ladies and gentlemen, in order for our company to survive this period when business is not coming in, what do? Do we sack? They say, I know, Oga, we won't sack anybody. I say, okay, fine. How about our salaries? Do we cut salaries? They look at it and say, yes, Oga, let's cut salaries. I say, okay, I will leave it to you. You go and work out by what percentage we cut salaries. So the staff of our company came back to me to now tell me the percentage we cut in salaries of everybody, including myself. So when we agreed that became, because of the communication with them, none of them complained that we cut salary. But when we now found our food, cash started coming in from new jobs during the lockdown, we now were able to go back to the salary we used to pay. Okay? So communication with employees is very, very important. Then with the shareholders and other stakeholders as well. So now, how do you adapt? There are 5 things I gave here. How you can adapt to the environment we are. You must have a plan. That plan says, how do we still connect with our market? The market is where your customers are. okay? It may not necessarily be a physical place, but how do I connect with my customers? One of the things that my company did, for example, was when there was a lockdown, we looked at most of our clients, especially those that have given us business in the last 2 years. We then wrote an email to their executives and said, we do for you this kind of thing that BOI has put together for you. We said we do it for the management team free of charge. And I remember we sent some mail also to BOI, okay, that we do this for the management of the bank free of charge. So some of them responded because some were too busy trying to find their own way to survive. They didn't remember to reply. But for the few that replied, we did it for them. Of course, while we were there, Deloitte also, which you will say is our competitor, now invited us and said, please be a consult. Let's partner together and do this sort of thing also for our own tax clients. So we did that for tax clients of Deloitte and so on and so forth. So we now said, if we did it that way, that will remind those customers that we are still in business. So that means when things now go well with them, they won't forget us. That's the idea. So what are you going to do to ensure that your company remains relevant and in business? And the first line of attack is cost. Because when money is not coming in the way it used to do, you have to attack cost. Then redesign your value propositions. What are you giving to customers? As I said earlier on, you may need to reduce price a little, in which case you cut back on your profit margin. In fact, one of the largest commercial companies in the world, that is Alibaba, okay? One of the founders, there are two of them, that is, I think, MAI, that's his name. He said, this year, 2020, is not a year that any company should be thinking of profit. That what we should be thinking about is survival. That if any company survives 2020, that is already profit. You can then begin to talk about profit next year. Of course, power of customer experience, that means look at how you enhance what customers get, then expand your connections with customers. I've already talked about that. And of course, empower your staff to be able to make decisions on behalf of the company in the market. That way, you are closer to the market. This is my final slide now. How do we recover from COVID-19? Now, remember I just said you must have a plan. Then you now aggressively execute that plan. There's the MD of one of our mortgage banks in Nigeria that sent me an email yesterday and said, your company helped us to do a new strategy plan to survive and recover from COVID-19. We have gone through it, the final thing. We are ready now for execution. So let's start to execute and say, yes, these people are thinking in the light of what I'm going to tell you here today. That is why we also talk about a new governance and work culture. They are very vital. Which means we begin to do things in a different way. Our staff also, you must let them understand that we are in a new normal. So the way they do their jobs must be different from now on. Then invest more in sustainability. That means look at those things that can make a business fail and avoid them. For example, in the month of July, we had enough money to pay staff salaries on the date we normally pay, 25th of the month. But that money was not enough to pay myself and my wife because we worked together in the same company in the last 20 years. So we said we will take our own salary when the next customer pays. And we didn't take our own salary until I think the beginning of this week on Monday. That's the July salary. So that is now investing more in sustainability. What are those things we do to ensure our business survives this environment? Look at the way you do things and improve on the way you do things. Then the jobs of the employees, redesign them. In which case, find a way to measure what every employee contributes. This is a time that you move away from sentiment. There's nothing like, oh, I like this one. Like people only because they are doing what they are supposed to do. Because it is about survival and growing the company after COVID-19. The final one is you must constantly check the value you are giving to your customers. In which case, find opportunities to meet with customers. In fact, as I'm speaking to you, some of our staff are conducting a survey with some customers on a project we're handling. So that is something you do on a daily basis. As at this time yesterday, I was preparing for an engagement with the operative of EFCC on a platform where NDIC, the sister company of Central Bank of Nigeria, they organized a training for EFCC operatives. and I was employed to now train them in FX and also in money laundering and countering financial terrorism. Okay, so everybody is learning how to improve, even regulatory agencies. So finally, and this is my summary and closing slide, I put it here simply: do what the market says. In fact, if any MSME will survive and then thrive, which is the essence of what BOI has put together for us, you must keep your eyes on the market. The market represents your customers. That means every day you wake up, look at that market. Where are opportunities? You must every day search for opportunities. Don't join people to say, oh, Nigeria is a difficult environment. We know that. Everybody knows. In fact, there's an American that came visiting Nigeria recently before the lockdown, and he said that when he looked at Nigeria and the challenges there, and he considered that people still do business there, he said, look, anyone doing business in America, if he comes to Nigeria, he will fail because he won't be able to handle the challenges. But he now said in the reverse, anybody who does business in Nigeria and his business is still operating, he can do business anywhere in the world. So if your business can survive till now we are discussing, what I'm putting to you is that your business can survive anywhere in the world. So look always for opportunities, and then in everything you do, put your customers first. All right? Then also, at every occasion, go beyond what the customer expects. If you know what I went through to ensure I was here for this seminar this time, if I had to change my password to Microsoft Teams this morning, I do so many things to ensure I was a part of this. Because what will I tell BOI? We've been on this for well over a month. What excuse will I give for not being able to join? And then also ensure that 3 of the internet service providers that I subscribe to, 2 of them are active and well funded, data in them. So as I'm speaking now about Swift, MTN is on standby. If Swift misbehaves, I will switch to MTN. Why is that? Because I want to ensure that I don't give BOI, and of course you distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the MSME operators, I don't give you less than what is expected. Okay? And of course, the final thing here is that you must follow the cash by doing everything legal and reasonable to collect payments. Because the success of any business doesn't end with producing and selling. The success is about selling and collecting payment for what is sold. That is what makes a business survive in the long run. So to thrive, therefore, find those opportunities because they exist. We have so many in Nigeria, over 200 million. In fact, in February, the estimate was 204 million. When I checked the data in July, somebody gave us an estimate of 207 million. Okay? So it's a large market. Everybody around the world is looking to come to Nigeria for business. They just opened a factory to assemble Volkswagen in Rwanda. The target is to sell those cars to Nigeria. That was why they wanted us to sign the AFTA, policy. That's why they wanted us in the agreement. Because if that agreement is signed by Nigeria, we sign the protocol, people can now sign their factory anywhere in Africa. They have Nigeria to sell to. So if everybody wants to sell here, that means you have a market ready made for you because you are right here. So but don't lose sight of the cash. Whenever you sell, ask yourself, how do I collect payments? So I'm sure we have more from Dr. Rislanudeen, and then maybe question and answer interaction. So thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, for having me speak at this time to you. So let me now stop sharing. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. I'd already told our audience, our distinguished audience, that today's 45 minutes will be the best 45 minutes of their lives, and I'm sure that they've learned a lot from today's from your presentation. Let me quickly call on Dr. Rislanudeen, who is the General Manager, SME North. His paper is recap on BOI's interventions, palliative measures, and forward-looking initiatives that benefit the micro and SME enterprises customers. Dr. Rislanudeen, please.
Thank you very much, Hadiza. I'm sure we are all better informed with the presentation by Dr. Biodun. Basically, what I have highlighted, like you said, is the impact of COVID-19 on MSMEs in Nigeria, and the efforts being made. We are coming down now from general to specific. The efforts being made by Bank of Industry to complement what the federal government has been doing over the last few months to support businesses in Nigeria. And I've started by basic introduction, which I have highlighted earlier on the history of COVID-19 coming from China sometimes in December 2019, which has become a real health threat and a global crisis, both in terms of economy and political implications. And I've also given out some little data based on Johns Hopkins University data as of today. Over 22.4 million confirmed cases and over 787,000 deaths have been reported across 188 countries and regions. In Nigeria, as of today, we had a recorded case of 50,000 based on the data brought out by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, 50,488 confirmed cases, 985 deaths, and 37,304 recoveries. The current global pandemic has brought about increased uncertainty in the economic environment, with both businesses struggling with the social and economic effects of the disease. The crisis has caused unprecedented panic and disruptions for MSMEs in Nigeria, inclusive of the health impact. Indeed, based on the report by the Enterprise Development Center, they've stated that at least 93% of MSMEs in Nigeria reported a decline in income due to the impact of lockdown as well as restrictions in movement. This also led to accentuation of unemployment. Some of the biggest challenges encountered by MSMEs were associated with cash flow challenges, production activities, logistics, and so on. Based on the challenges, down 88% are already rethinking on their business models. 57% of sales have been affected. 52% had challenges relating to cash flow. 49% reported logistic issues, and 36% noted issues with production activities. This has a significant impact on the entire economy, on the global, on the GDP of the country, and it also has significant impact on the level of unemployment. The EDC suggested some of the measures that can be done to support MSMEs during this pandemic period, like financial support, which includes grants to cope with the challenges for especially youth, businesses relating to youth and women. Technology support and access to market, mentorship support, psychological mentorship support, reduced interest rate and extended moratorium, which is what we have been doing as Bank of Industry, tax holidays, as well as energy support. The federal government of Nigeria and Central Bank of Nigeria initially came up with some palliatives at the outset of the pandemic, sometimes in March. In fact, we must commend Central Bank for being very proactive in the early part of the pandemic in March. First, they came up with extension of moratorium that CBN intervention facilities currently within moratorium period will be granted additional 1-year extension. And they also brought out a reduction in interest rate from 9% to 5% effective from March for CBN intervention facilities. Central Bank of Nigeria also came up with 100 billion credit support for the health sector, as well as 50 billion targeted credit facility for households and SMEs, which was tailored towards supporting small businesses through NIASA. And then there is also upcoming 1 trillion support for manufacturing and production, also from Central Bank, as well as the CBN and IFC supported 1.5 trillion InfraCo project targeted at supporting critical infrastructure and also enabling linkages of farming communities to markets. And also, Central Bank also came up with regulatory forbearance for businesses that are critically affected by creative industry, entertainment, hospitality, oil and gas, manufacturing, and so on, as well as strengthening their LDR loan to deposit ratio policy to maximum of 65% to ensure that deposit money banks support small businesses, support the Nigerian economy. Looking ahead, Bank of Industry is reviewing its entire strategic imperatives by supporting government efforts toward accelerating national economic recovery post-COVID-19. Of course, like you know, the basic mandate of Bank of Industry is providing financial assistance for the establishment of large, medium, and small projects, as well as expansion, diversification, and modernization of existing enterprises and rehabilitation of existing ones. Basically, Bank of Industry is a development bank. It is aimed at ensuring that we support Nigerian economy, we support growth of Nigerian economy, we complement government's effort, we complement deposit money bank's efforts in ensuring that the economy grows, in ensuring that jobs are created, and our lives improve tremendously. And so basically, BOI-centric MSME palliatives are detailed as follows. First, support to customers. The bank implemented measures for its customers as follows. 1, reduction of interest rate on BOI direct line of credit by 2% from 10% to 8% with effect from April 2020 and terminating March 31, 2021. We also came up with a provision of additional moratorium of 3 months on principal repayment granted to all beneficiaries of Bank of Industry's funds from April 1 to June 31, 2020. And there is also an option to extend that moratorium by additional 12 months based on justification from customers on case-by-case basis. Other managed funds like Nigerian Content also offered similar palliatives. We also reviewed all our ongoing projects to ascertain the risk exposure of each project and deal with it as appropriate on a case-by-case basis. We have also engaged with the bank's lenders on possible tenor mismatch that can arise from restructuring of loans, specifically African Development Bank and African Export-Import Bank. We've also engaged with the guaranteeing banks, that's the deposit money banks, on other possible changes that can arise from restructuring of the loans. Of course, we have to engage them because if we want to restructure those loans, they have to agree because they have to give us as supplemental guarantees. We also reviewed and restructured all the projects under the CBN Intervention Fund. On a general note, also, BOI has supported the COVID-19 Nigeria towards supporting the fight against COVID-19 outbreak. The Bank of Industry donated 700 million, broken down as follows. 500 million to private sector coalition against COVID-19, CACOVID, fund targeted at providing more testing, isolation, and treatment centers across Nigeria. We also supported FCT Ministerial Committee and Lagos State Government with 100 million naira each. Bank of Industry also has existing and ongoing initiatives to support MSMEs even before the advent of the COVID-19. For example, we have these business advisory services. As part of these activities to support MSMEs, the bank started partnership with the business development service providers to provide business advisory services by way of capacity building, mentoring, business modeling design, business plan creation, entrepreneurial training, and etc. to SMEs since 2014. These services have improved the business knowledge of some of our customers and also made it possible for them to access the bank services in good time. To improve the effectiveness of the business advisory services offered, customers and have also made it possible for them to access the bank services in good time. And the complement of BDSPs has tremendously assisted some of our customers in understanding their businesses, understanding their markets, and how they can be able to grow their businesses optimally. We also have so many programs for youth support, like the Youth Enterprise Support Program, the Graduate Entrepreneurship Program. Since inception, 574 loans valued at 945.1 million have been disbursed under the JEF program, and 388 loans valued at 1.383 billion have been disbursed under the YES program. JEF program is basically a graduate entrepreneurship fund. It the basic security required is the NYSE certificate. So for startups, they don't need to really get worried about thinking about borrowing from the bank, and there is a challenge of collateral. Towards improving the effectiveness of the programs, especially in light of COVID-19, the bank has decided to review the framework and structure of both initiatives to enhance appeal and subscription. We also consistently engage in with our customers. Through the bank has continuously enhanced its customer engagement channels towards improving its customer experience and satisfaction. We have achieved this through organizing customer forums that allow the bank to interact directly with MSME customers across all the regions, all the geopolitical zones, at least once in a year. This provides an opportunity to listen to our customers, understand their challenges, and come up with solutions to address some of those challenges. We have also revamped and increased our customer touchpoints in recent years. We revamped our website market to make it more customer friendly and interactive. The question and answer section has also been in the website, has also been updated, and we will shortly go live with our chat box application, which allow customers to obtain first-hand information about the bank, how to access various products, and how we can be able to support their business. These channels also help to support effective loan processing, tracking, and resolving of customer inquiries and complaints. The new COVID-19 environment has necessitated that the bank pays particular attention to our digital touchpoints. To this end, we are currently working on improving our customer experience by implementing a BOI app that will allow customers apply for loans through their mobile phones. We are also introducing an online application service on the website that will allow MSMEs to easily apply and track all loan processes. This is expected to begin by the end of this year. Some of the suggested strategies for MSMEs to survive and thrive, especially during this time, we have highlighted them. Part of it, first, MSMEs need to identify and retain key customer segments. Identify your customers. Assess how the segment has been affected by the crisis and how such effect may influence your customer consumption patterns. Be able to address the challenges of changing consumption and demand patterns of this particular segment. Amend value proposition to align with changing demand of key customer segments. Be willing and proactive enough to make it difficult for key customers to switch over to other competitors, especially in this period of pandemic, where demand is challenged because of limited resources. Increase value-based offerings such as discount or bundle packages for price-conscious customer segments. Increase your convenience options such as domestic delivery options for existing customers. Review and strategize on activities and customer channels to improve customer satisfaction. Improve the efficiency of key production activities. Localize a good majority of partnerships to reduce the risk of disruption to supply chains by increasing the number of local suppliers to the businesses, especially during this period of time that the entire world is locking itself up. We are just reopening, so having as much local content will support easy revamping of small businesses. Leverage on digital channels as a means to reach out to your customers faster, e.g. the websites, social media platform, WhatsApp for businesses, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. Introduce process improvements such as reducing the number of human hands-off in a process. Create additional revenue streams to address potential opportunity that may arise as a result of the crisis. Constantly scan for new opportunities that may be associated with existing key customer segment with a new customer segment. This should lead to creation of a new product that can serve as an additional revenue source. For many MSMEs in Nigeria, COVID-19 has led to staff retrenchment, furlough leave, salary reduction, loss of income, and business closure. Whether like Dr. Adedipe said, we need not to be to anticipate. We have to wait until we see the gross domestic product data for second part of this year. Already Like you said, there is a projection of minus 5.4% contraction for Nigeria this year, but we need to wait and see how the data will look like, and then from then we can be able to estimate whether the economic recovery will be what we want, that is a V-shaped, or whether it is going to be a U-shaped or L-shaped or W-shaped. We hope it is going to be a V-shaped, getting into recession and getting out as fast as possible with government support, with complementary support of Bank of Industry. Given the realities of the pandemic, a new normal has evolved in the business environment, and it is not going to go away very fast. So going forward, MSMEs must continually review existing business models, re-examine online presence, encourage virtual interaction, and upskill staff to better survive. The truth is, nothing will ever be the same again after COVID-19. That's the true situation. We will have to live with the current pandemic situation for the meantime. Like I said earlier on, we are yet to get a vaccine. Even if the vaccine is found, we successfully found, there is also another angle of it, the political aspect of it. We are not part of it. So the key message is our economy has been opened. We need to be conscious of our health. We need to continue to do our, and knowing fully well that we cannot lock ourselves at infinitum, and we have to come out to survive. And in coming out to survive, we have to be conscious of the health challenges. We have to be conscious of the health protocols and ensure that we observe those protocols while ensuring that we are out and pursuing our legitimate businesses. In locking ourselves off, the rates of unemployment, the loss of income will simply exacerbate, and that is not what any economy wants. That is not what any country wants. And we assure you that Bank of Industry will be ever supportive to supporting small, micro, small, and medium enterprise businesses that will grow. We will support them to nurture them to grow and thrive and be strong, so that they can be able to support Nigerian economy by creating more jobs, improving the growth of our size of our economy, and for the benefit of the entire society. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Rislanudeen. For those of you that are just joining us, Dr. Rislanudeen is the General Manager, SME North. He's done his presentation, and just like I said earlier, that BOI recognizes the importance of SMEs, and that's why we're organizing the first of various webinars that we're coming up, because we understand that this is the new normal and we need to strive, and we need you to also thrive. We have various questions. There's a Q&A box where I mentioned earlier that you can send your questions to, and we have questions here. So we're going to start by taking, let's say, 4 questions. We'll get responses to those ones, and then you can send in more questions, then go back. Some of you, I need you to indicate if you want, the person you're targeting the questions at, if it's Dr. Adedipe, or if it's Dr. Rislanudeen, or if it's just a general question. Let me start with the first person who sent us is BT Bello of Romis Consultants Limited. You're asking if the cooperative funding for MSMEs in BOI is still on. I'm sure Dr. Rislanudeen can answer that question. We also have Mr. Nero Adams here. You're saying, please, can we have a recording after for future reference? Oh, definitely. We had announced it earlier that this is recorded, and we're going to send the link to everybody that is logged on. And then we have Pastor J.O. Adeni. Pastor J.O. Adeni is asking, why is it that BOI requires documents for a loan? Why is that BOI required documents for a loan are not given at once? Okay, your question is not just one, Doctor, so I will just highlight it. I'm sure it's targeted. This question is for Dr. Rislanudeen. Why does BOI insist on local fabricators when they know that they are not up to standard? What will BOI do to assist a customer who has a loan but cannot produce due to breakdown of machines bought locally? Can the customer apply for additional loan to procure imported machine? Dr. Rislanudeen will answer that. And then we have, oh, okay, this is anonymous. You didn't put your name. We appreciate BOI for kind consideration of loan offered. You're most welcome, sir. Then the last question for this segment is from JVIC Integrated Resources Limited. The new norm imposed by the COVID-19 lockdown is the reliance on technology to sustain business operations and turnaround time for activities. It is in this light that the drive to automate business processes is not just a business strategy, but a must-have. In this regard, I find it difficult to understand why a loan application submitted on the BOI portal over 3 months ago had no response from BOI. I need the BOI team to please look into our loan application ASAP. Thank you. For, like this question, Dr. Rislanudeen is going to answer, but for all of you logged on right now, if you have any complaints or if you have challenges in terms of something similar to what JFK has sent, our email is, you can send an email to customer care. Customer care is one word at boi.ng. Customer care at boi.ng. Or you can even call the customer care number. We operate, I'm sure you definitely get response to that. Let me just add one more. And this one is from Solomon Aderoju of NASME Lagos. I hope we shall get this seminar paper at the end of the program. Most definitely, sir. And since I've answered that, let me just add one more. Anonymous, here saying you're asking, please, what is the source of poverty data used by the presenter to refute/challenge the World Bank figures? Dr. Adedipe, this question is for you. If you want me to repeat it, let me just take it again. Please, what is the source of the poverty data used by the presenter to refute/challenge the World Bank figures? Dr. Rislanudeen, sir, I think you can start with the first question.
Okay. Okay. If I am right, the first question talked about whether cooperative funding for SMEs is still on, right?
Yes, sir.
It's still on. Yes. You can borrow if you have a cooperative union, so long as it's a duly registered association. You can borrow from Bank of Industry, and for all lending to your members. There is no problem about that one. It's still on. Then somebody asked a question as to why BOI is more interested in customers that are going to more of acquire their machinery fabricators locally, knowing fully well that the local fabricators maybe are not as effective as the imported ones. I think the answer is very clear. We are a development bank, and our responsibility is to support Nigerian economy. And if we don't support the local fabricators, how will they grow? How will they be efficient? How will they be as good as the ones we are talking about from outside the country or from wherever? Knowing fully well, whatever we import, we are indirectly exporting jobs. And if we rely locally, and there is a value chain, backward integration, we are creating more jobs. We are making our economy much more stronger. So part of the raising the tar of Bank of Industry is not just to give out loans for a private company to simply grow and make money for himself or for the shareholders only. No, it is also part of integral part with creating wealth. But additionally, we want to see a situation where those businesses we are supporting are also supporting the larger populace in terms of increased employment generation, in terms of local backward integration. So it is a conscious effort. And we do hope that the local fabricators, by encouraging them, they will be able to be more efficient and they will be able to optimally compete. Take, for example, now, since the ban of importation of rice, we have so many rice milling companies. And now, most people now eat local rice. And this local rice, hitherto, it was when you chew once or twice, you'll find some stones. Now you don't find them. Why? Because they have been encouraged, they brought the machines and they have the market and so on. So we have to support our local our businesses. So that is basically the reason. And then somebody also asked a question as to whether can a customer apply for loan? I think the same customer. Can a customer apply for a loan to acquire machines, local machines? Yes, you can. The only thing that we try to discourage is for somebody, maybe, for example, to import a chokumbo, a second-hand product, imported, not locally made, and then ask the bank to finance it, because we know that it has a limited lifespan, and we know that there may be challenges at the end of the day in repayment. As soon as they start using those machineries, its lifespan gets off, there may be problems, the customer will have a problem, the bank will have a problem, but you can. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
Dr.
I think
Adedipe. Yes, sir. Dr. Adedipe, you have a question, and then in case there's any other thing you want to add to what Dr. Rislanudeen has also mentioned in, answering those other questions, if there's anything you want to add to it, please kindly go ahead.
All right, thank you so very much. The question on poverty data. Now, the organization that actually conducted the survey that came out with a report that 80% of Nigerians are in extreme poverty is called Brookings Institution. It is private, it is not government. So it is not World Bank, okay? That's on the one hand. Now, they were the ones I challenged the survey they did. And up to date, as I'm talking to you, they have not responded to the challenge because it is a process, a methodology that we use in conducting survey that they cannot substantiate, okay? Now, we have an official government agency that also partners with the World Bank you made reference to, that deals with data in Nigeria, and that is the National Bureau of Statistics. Such agency exists in many countries around the world. So if you want to Google it, if you don't put Nigeria, I can take you to that of China or wherever, okay? Google it, National Bureau of Statistics Nigeria. Go on their website, you can download the report. They conducted a survey, okay, and came out with a finding that only 40.1%, just like I remarked, even though that is a large number, we are concerned, we are worried about that, but in their own report, they indicated that 40.1% were living below the poverty line, okay? So whereas Brookings Institution 2 years ago said it is 80%, which I challenged until date, they've not been able to respond. And I want to also put this in context. I was a full-time staff of the World Bank 31 years ago. So if I make comments about whatever the World Bank does, you can be sure it is speaking from the perspective of an insider at some point in my career, but now also as a Nigerian, knowing what I went through when I was working there. Okay, but I will leave that there. Now, there was a question that Dr. Rislanudeen responded to, okay, and that is about a locally fabricated machinery that was said to be substandard. And I always share this experience with people. We are all very familiar with Kia Automobile today, okay? In my early years in banking, I came into investment banking in Nigeria in 1989 from the World Bank. Now, Kia brand was just evolving. And for people like Dr. Rislanudeen, you will remember this brand of Kia Motors, Capita. The name was, this was spelled K-A-P-I-T-A, Capita. That car never lasted 6 months on the road. Very poor quality. But why we in Nigeria refuse to buy Kia car because of that experience, Koreans were still buying their own car. And Kia, therefore, because of patronage, improved over time. By 2013, Kia was the best-selling automobile in the home of automobile, that's the United States of America. And I always cite that as an example. Now, until we patronize our own, they have no opportunity to improve the quality. And that is the major challenge we have in our economy, like Dr. Rislanudeen said. That if you don't patronize what we produce here, how will they improve in quality? So, and if we keep also buying, importing, then we keep creating jobs abroad. We won't be creating jobs here. So all of these things are interconnected. The same thing goes with the strengths we have in FX market. The more of foreign things we demand, the more pressure in the FX market, and the more naira we lose value. They are all interconnected. Okay? People are poor because they don't have jobs. Why don't they have jobs? We prefer imports. And if we prefer imports, that means we are creating jobs offshore. So, and of course, that will also have security implications. So many things, they are all interconnected. So we must come to a point like India did sometime in their history, where Gandhi said that Indians will go naked if they cannot produce the clothes that their own people will wear. They took that position. I mentioned in my presentation, United Arab Emirates took a decision about a month and a half ago and said, we no longer import face masks from anywhere in the UAE. Every face mask that people use must be produced in UAE, no matter the quality. We use what we produce. This happened just 1.5 months ago, about 6 weeks ago. The same thing in Japan. The Bank of Japan, that their central bank, put out $240 billion so that Japanese manufacturers can begin to manufacture in Japan. So they will stop importing from China and depend on the rest of the world. Until we begin to produce locally here and depend on our own things, we cannot create sufficient jobs to turn the situation around. That's my additional comment on that. Thank you so very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. For smooth transition, I will just I think we'll just do one question or two questions at a time. So we have someone, Solomon Aderoju of NASME here in Lagos. He said, sir, how is COVID-19 causing inflation shock and deflation shock at the same time? Dr. Esotu.
All right, thank you so very much for that. Now, inflation shock is a situation where prices simply skyrocket. The reason is because a lot of things needed are in short supply. Okay, we saw that happen with ventilators in the early period of COVID-19 and response to that. We saw shortages of face masks and other health PPEs generally, that is personal protection equipment. Okay, so when those things were in shortages, the prices skyrocketed. And of course, many things people also needed, they were in short supply, prices went up. So where those things happen, those countries experience inflation shock. Then for those that experience deflation shock, the problem is that they were producing, but they couldn't find buyers. So in order to sell, they became desperate. And so they reduced their prices persistently. We've seen it happen before. In fact, I witnessed one, personally, and this was in UK during the global financial crisis 10 years ago. I was in London for a meeting, December 2009, had another business meeting, January 2010. In December 2009, retailers were putting banners in front of their shops in most of the major streets in London with 50% discount, okay, desperate to sell. By the following month, I went to London for another business meeting. The banners had changed from 50 to 75%. That's an illustration of deflation shock, which means prices keep going down, people still refuse to buy. Now, deflation shock and inflation shock don't happen together in the same country at the same time, okay? But we can now bring it down to interpretation this way, that within this space in Nigeria, there are businesses, it happens also all over the world. There are those we call essentials, and there are those that are non-essentials. If you are an essential business, that means you are producing and selling what people need, all right? So for you, therefore, you don't have any reason to reduce your price. In fact, some of those selling essentials increase their price during the COVID-19 lockdown and the rest of it. But there were some, like my business I give as an example, is a non-essential business. People will tell you that I must eat first before I go to pay a consultant. So they would rather spend their money on food, they would rather spend their money on data, okay, rather than pay a consultant to do any work. So for those in non-essential business then, in order to survive, they will need to reduce price. That is an illustration. When we now see that happening all over the entire economy, it becomes what we call deflation shock. So they don't happen the same time in the same country. Different countries have different experiences. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Doctor. There's this Mr. Ademolu Onobajo. How do you use price reduction to recover COVID-19 when your price is at the lowest before COVID-19? Won't that be selling below cost price?
Well, thank you very much for that. You also will recollect during my presentation, I made remark to the fact that year 2020 is a year of survival. It is not a year of profit. Okay, and I made reference to one of the largest e-commerce companies in the world, that's Alibaba. That one of the co-founders said, if any company survived 2020, it should regard survival as profit for this year. That is not a year you talk about making profit. So that means that if you are selling below cost, and this is the reality, you know, we call it the new normal. The reality is that you are not selling this year to make profit. Whatever you sell this year is to just survive and then look forward to making profit in 2021. It's a new normal. That means you must look at business differently than it used to be in the past. So everything is geared towards survival. So what do I do with my cost profile? What do I do with income generation? If to keep income still coming in, I need to reduce my price, then that becomes my survival strategy. So please, I will encourage people not to keep making reference to pre-COVID-19 in terms of designing what to do now. You should be thinking about, how do I survive? There are companies that even gave out things free. Okay? Companies gave out what they produce for free. We've seen that happen all around the world, even here in Nigeria. I gave an example of my own company that did what normally we charge for free. Okay? Just to survive. Gave them out for free so that we can be remembered and given business to later. So if you have to cut your price below cost price, it's a survival strategy. It's the new normal. Just is for a period anyway. It won't be permanent that way. Remember. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I have this, Dr. Rislanudeen, this is for you. I appreciate BOI for their continuous efforts in ensuring that MSME grows in Nigeria. My question here is that, what are the reasons for the delays we're experiencing in our recent applications? Because according to the speaker, works are being conducted online without any hindrances. But the reply I kept on receiving is that there is a delay because of the effect of COVID-19. Please, BOI should look into new applications and respond, because I see no reason why we should be having such delays.
Thank you very much. If there are any delays, we apologize. But the key message is we are in an era of pandemic, and everybody knows that there are some organizations that do not even work. But we are lucky as a bank that over the years we have invested in technology to the extent that you can work from anywhere. Even before COVID-19, we can work from anywhere. We can process credits from anywhere. We can process approvals, expenses from anywhere. We can hold meetings from anywhere. But that does not obviate the fact that not being in the office will create some 1 or 2 delays. And I'm sure it is a result of those little hiccups, because now, as we are getting back to normal, not a single office comes to the office, the staff come to the office 100%. we have to start gradually. But that does not mean that the work cannot be done effectively from anywhere. So if there is, I'm sure that is an exception, and we will look at it. If you send us the details, we'll look at it and address it with expeditiously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. For those of you that are just joining us, I had mentioned, and we're going to type it in the question Q&A box. You can send in your emails, questions, any challenges you're having to customercare@boi.ng, customercare@boi.ng. And someone is asking, please, can we get the slides of the presentation? Yes, for all those that are logged on, we're going to send you the slides. Pastor Adeni again, Dr. Rislanudeen, this is for you. He said, how will BOI help me procure the machine I need for production, which I have to import? I have a loan that the repayment hinges on production, which has stopped for months. I need help. I need a reply. And then he included his email here. Pastor Adeni, we're going to send you customer care. You can send this to customercare@boi.ng, but Dr. Rislanudeen will quickly just answer before, we'll just answer you now.
Okay. Since we cannot be able to, I cannot be able to talk to him and he responds, I will just extrapolate based on what I think is in his mind. If he has already had an approved facility and the challenge is in importation, then this is a general problem that all organizations have because of the lockdowns. As we are getting out of the lockdown, we are getting back to new normal. Countries begin to open, then factories begin to open abroad. We will, I'm sure you'll be able to get those imported items first. But if there is anything that you want us to do in either maybe changing the supplier, maybe looking at locally produced equipment, we will be most ready and most happy if they are even local producers, because that is what we even want. Thank you. But I think it will be apt if you can send it, like you rightly suggested, by email. Send the details of exactly what you want, what are the challenges, so that we can look at it and then give him a professional opinion based on the challenges that he or she has. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. We have Mr. Fatai Owosheni. He's asking, people hear of support from CBN in billions of naira, but the distribution is shrouded in secrecy and based on patronage. I don't know if this is a question. Who do I direct this to? Dr. Rislanudeen or Dr. Adedipe?
Adedipe. All right, let me address that. Actually, posted a response to that in the Q&A box. Now, the intervention done so far by the central bank, and the reason I can talk to this is because I track what is happening across the various monetary fiscal authorities and even directly by the government itself. So that's why I can respond to this. Not because I'm a consultant of central bank or I'm a staff of central bank. I am not. I'm just a Nigerian and an analyst. But from the information we have available, the intervention funds put out by central bank, we are targeted mainly at 3 sectors. The first is health, and that is to all the pharmaceutical companies that produce drugs and medicaments that are COVID-19 specific in terms of relevance. Then secondly, to those who manufacture PPEs, that is personal protective equipment, that also are COVID-19 specific, that is in terms of production locally. So then the third category is for the agriculture, that's the sector, the agricultural sector. Okay, that's the one, the 50 billion naira they push through NASA Microfinance Bank. Okay, so those interventions went basically to those 3. So one of the things people like us, advocates of policy, have said, you remember I mentioned that about 8 weeks ago, that my firm sent a memorandum to the presidency Okay, what we have been putting pressure on them to do, the central bank and the presidency, is that they should come up now with an intervention for the MSME. And we, of course, use data to justify our recommendation to them. And I remember vividly, some 2 weeks after we delivered that memorandum to the presidency, that the president made a remark, and also the vice president thereafter, that they were putting together an intervention fund that will be directed specially to the MSMEs. Because what we did in that memo was to just use data to show them that there was still a gap in that area. So what they have done so far is real, okay? It is real. It's not just an announcement to make us feel good. Those monies went to the sectors intended. So, and of course, if you also research this on the internet, I'm sure you will get all this information. Just Google any of those things. Google, for example, CBN intervention in the health sector. The internet will show you the details of it, how much so far. Do the same thing for agri, you will see the figure come out. Because they've almost exhausted the 50 billion with NASA as we speak. So they are thinking of putting a fresh fund there. And for your own sector, the MSMEs, I'm one of those pressurizing government to do something specifically for you. That if they don't intervene in your sector, Nigeria may not be able to escape the recession that IMF has predicted for us. So that is it. It is real.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Mr. Adiroju here is saying, Dr. Rislanudeen, this is for you. Has BOI started financing startup companies? Please let me include one more. The first one is, has BOI started financing startup companies? And the second one is from Benjamin, Checkup Laboratory. He said, thanks for the seminar. Regarding the extension of moratorium, most SMEs who took the facility to start up, e.g. GEF program, that the Graduate Enterprise Fund program, should please be given more grace, as the new pandemic has hurt smaller startups than existing businesses. Please, is there any plan by the bank to this regard? Dr. Rislanudeen, the two questions are for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Basically, as a development finance institute, there is simply no way BOI can abdicate from a basic responsibility of supporting a startup. So the simple answer is we support any business, whether it is whether it's an existing business or it is a startup, so long as it has a cogent business plan that can be tested. So we support startups, we support existing businesses. And then on the issue of grace, additional grace period for JEP programs, like I said in my presentation, the bank is looking at the entire framework, loan framework, with a view to, within the context of the COVID-19 situation that we found ourselves, within the context of the new normal, on a case-by-case basis, we are reviewing all those facilities and looking at them, and based on the individual peculiarities, we can be able to restructure, we can be able to extend the moratorium, we can be able to extend the tenor, we can be able to reduce interest. The whole essence is to support those programs to grow, to ensure that our investment, their investment, did not just go and die in vain, simply because of a natural disaster that has come on by way of COVID-19.
Thank you very much.
We will support it.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Is BOI involved in the disbursement of a couple of interventions that CBN has announced during this pandemic? Somebody wants to know that. Let me just add that, Dr. Rislanudeen, I think this question is for you. Is BOI involved in the disbursement of the couple of interventions that CBN has announced during this pandemic? The second one is, thanks to BOI for this wonderful webinar. Please, I want to ask this question. What time does it take for a search to be conducted in BOI? I guess this is a potential customer. These questions are for you, Dr. Rislanudeen. Over to you, sir. Dr. Rislanudeen, your microphone is muted.
At the advent, sorry, I apologize. At the advent, like I said earlier in my presentation, at the advent of this COVID-19 pandemic, to be more specific, in Nigeria, March this year, CBN came up with different programs. They were very proactive. It was not a reactive situation because nobody knew the impact, but somebody sat down and imagined the impact on the economy, on businesses. First, they came up with 100 billion support for small businesses, particularly health sector. And accessing those funds are not necessarily across only BOI, but across all DMBs, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Second, Central Bank also came up with 50 billion, like B.Adedipe was saying, for individuals also and households, to support individual and household businesses, small loans. This money was accessed primarily through NIRSA. And like Dr. B.Adedipe said, the money has already even been exhausted. Third, there is the 1 trillion fund that is also being supported directly from, I believe it's quantitative easing from the balance sheet of the central bank. And the balance sheet is strong enough to absorb that anyway. The 1 trillion that is coming up is meant to support MSMEs and even large enterprises, but most importantly, MSMEs. The modalities are still coming up. Our projection is at least 50% of those funds or even more will be routed through Bank of Industry or even the entire 1 trillion, but the modalities are not out yet. So basically that is the answer to the issue whether the central bank intervention program can be accessed through the BOI. And on issue of search conducted, maybe it is also the challenge of this COVID. Like I said, not all offices are fully opened. Maybe the lawyer that was assigned, maybe is still struggling with the CSC to get those searches conducted and revert back to the bank, the state manager. But if it is, it has passed 1 month, then it has passed the red line. I think what you need to do is you should just send us an email through either through customer care or through the state manager, so that we can be able to follow up if there is a challenge or the assigned solicitor is having challenges or he or she cannot be able to do it. We can quickly assign somebody and learn from that experience as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Mr. Emmanuel Benedict, I want to find out if BOI is participating in the 1 trillion naira CBN intervention fund for the manufacturing sector. It seems Doctor had answered that earlier, but I'm sure he will say something to that effect. Let me just take a second one from Dr. Chinedu Anyanwu. I'm Chinedu, MD of St. Charles Medic Diagnostic, Oka, Anambra State. I want the Bank of Industry to go in reality and tell us what they have done for SMEs. I'm just getting to know of the healthcare loan from CBN through BOI. Why can't I access this loan? How long will it take to process this loan? And Doctor, do you have that question?
Yes, CBN healthcare loans.
Okay. So he wants to know, he said he's just getting to know about the CBN. I think he's referring to the COVID intervention, the COVID intervention by the Central Bank of Nigeria. You may want to just answer him before we take other questions.
Okay. First, on the issue of the intervention funds, whether CBN intervention, specifically the 1 trillion, whether they can he can be able to access it through the Bank of Industry. And I think I have already explained the modalities is still coming out, and CBN will specify how and where those funds can be accessed. Our thinking is at least 60% or even more of those funds will be routed through Bank of Industry. Why? And the reason goes into as part of the response to the second question. We have the experience, we have the knowledge, we have the capability, and we have done it CBN on several occasions. When CBN came up with the 500 billion intervention fund for SMEs many years ago, I think around 2012, and then the Power and Aviation Intervention Fund, several intervention funds, the money was routed directly through Bank of Industry, and the customers have benefited, they have prepaid, and central bank's money has been returned. So our thinking is this also, the central bank will leverage on that experience. But having said that, of course, the central bank also have a responsibility to support other organizations, to support other banks. So the 100 billion loan for healthcare can be accessed based on the information available from central bank, can be accessed through all the deposit money banks, inclusive of Bank of Industry. And the modalities of accessing those loans are there. You can check on the website of the central bank and also on our own website. It is the modalities are clear, that the guidelines and everything have been out. And if you are in the business of healthcare, this is the best opportunity for you to get a much cheaper loan with a much longer tenure, because what we need as a country now is to ramp up on our health system, because after this, when at the advent of this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, we have realized that we have not done enough as a country to support ourselves as far as health sector is concerned. And that informs the underlying imperative for the central bank early part of the year to quickly set up those and say we will support them, those that are into businesses of providing medical equipment, medicines, health services on a general note, PPEs, vitamins, all forms of medical services. And some of those companies have already benefited, and many more will benefit. And I'm sure this 100 billion will be by no means exhaustive. And I'm sure central bank will come up with more funds to be made available to support particularly this health sector. So the window is still open. And I believe if you go through the guidelines, you can be able to access those loans so long as you meet up with those their defined conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm sure there's another one here. He's asking, please, how do customers benefit from the additional 3 months moratorium as a result of COVID-19 pandemic? The first one, how do customers benefit from the additional 3 months moratorium as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? The second one, why are we still charging customers 10% on loan and 13% for working capital, based on what Dr. Rislanudeen said on rate reduction? This case was just for loan guaranteed in July 2020. Doctor, did you get the question, sir?
Yes, I got it. First, the most important benefit for the 3 months moratorium is improved cash flow for the customer. The money that the customer will have to struggle, because within that period for over 3 months or 3 months, some of those companies were shut down. Everybody was at home. So there was no cash flow. And if there was no cash flow, and the bank insists that you must repay its loan, the options are either you borrow from somewhere, which will sink the business further, or you simply default. And by defaulting, you create a bad image, and you create a challenge of non-performing loans to the bank. So it is for dual advantage. Even if you have the money, the 3 months moratorium will give the customer an improved cash flow and improved liquidity to begin to recover from the challenges, from the lockdown challenges and so on. As to the issue of 10% and 13%, unless if there is the customer has any challenge, that is to say, if that customer has, in borrowing, he was able to get a bank guarantee from a deposit money bank, and that deposit money bank has reneged or refused to issue a supplemental bank guarantee to Bank of Interest, which will pose a challenge to the bank, all loans have been reduced by 2%, like I stated earlier on. The only one that remains outstanding are those key customers of banks that have not issued the supplemental bank guarantee. Having said that, there are even customers that said, yes, we want reduction in the interest, but we don't even want the moratorium, because even in the midst of the pandemic, we are doing well. We have sufficient cash flow. We want to repay on time, so that maybe we will borrow again. We don't even want it. There are customers that said, thank you very much. We appreciate the reduction in interest, but please allow us to continue our repayment because we have the cash flow. So if you have the cash flow, you want to continue to repay, nobody is going to force you that you should not repay. But if you don't have, or you think you have little challenges, an opportunity is given by the bank to extend the moratorium so that you can be able to have improved cash flow, improved liquidity, to be able to pick up the patches of the lockdown and get the business going again. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Anonymous is asking, how do you apply loan without bank guarantee? I think he's asking, how do you apply for loan without a bank guarantee? Doctor, let me just add more questions to that. This is another person saying, can we apply for additional loan when we have business opportunities during an ongoing loan? Not yet, there's a P here, I guess not yet paid. This is from Dr. Sambo in Ilorin. Those two questions, and then, yes, those two questions, sir.
Okay. The first question is whether somebody can apply for a BOI loan without a bank guarantee, right?
Yes, sir.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. All businesses are being dealt with based on their specific exigencies on a case-by-case basis. So he can, but the judgment can be done as to whether the bank will have to get a bank guarantee, or you can accept another collateral aside from bank guarantee. And we have to take note of the fact that some of the funds that the bank is managing are not BOI funds. They are funds sourced from outside this country. Early part of this year, Bank of Industry was able to raise 1 billion euros from us, and some of those loans come up with conditions. Some of the conditionalities, for example, the lenders will say, as part of those conditions, you have to get a counter guarantee, meaning that you have to get a bank guarantee from a deposit money bank. So if that is the case, it may be difficult. But if it is a BOI fund, it actually really depends on the exigencies of the business on a case-by-case basis. I'm not giving 100% assurance, but the point I'm making is it is not something that is impossible. Second, whether a customer can apply for additional loan even though he or she has not finished paying, so long as the customer that borrowed is repaying those loans as at when due. There are no problems with past due repayments. There are no challenges with potentially creating a non-performing loan for the bank. There are no problems with consistent follow-ups asking for the customer to honor his or her obligations. and there are underlying reason to see clearly that the business is growing, that there is underlying imperative for more funds based on the business plan, yes, we do it. This is something that Bank of Industry do, consistently. You don't need to finish repaying before you apply for a new loan, so long as it can be established that there is an optimal utilization, and it can also be established that there are no issues with repayments of existing ones. You can apply for more funds to be able to grow the business beyond where it is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Dr. Adedipe, the next set of questions are for you. Great webinar. It's surprising that Nigerians are questioning why BOI is trying to encourage local fabricators. Will people reject the funding from BOI? After all, we are all local businesses here. I'm very sure this man is a fabricator. He now has a further question for you, Doctor. He's saying, Dr. Adedipe, sir, can deflation happen in some industry and inflation in others within the same country?
All right, let me address that very quickly. Now, if you talk about within the same country, certainly inflation and deflation can happen at the same time. Because when you talk about inflation or deflation, you are talking about changes in the general price level. So when the general price level is going up, that means you have conducted a survey that covers the entire country. And then you now look at movement in that general price level. If it persistently goes up, they will say you are operating in an inflationary environment. That's Nigeria for you, okay? But if you are operating in an environment where prices keep going down persistently, they will say the environment is deflationary. That is Japan for you, especially in the last close to 40 years now. Since 1980, Japan has been struggling with that, okay? The Japanese central bank was the first ever in the entire world to introduce minimum discount rate, what we call monetary policy rate today in Nigeria, at 0%. And that was 20 years ago, as a desperate move to counter deflationary pressures. Because prices kept going down, and the only way to attack that was to make borrowing very cheap. So if people find borrowing very cheap, then they can now borrow and spend so that prices can start going up. So they were the first central bank to introduce zero rate of interest in lending to commercial banks, so that they too can lend in turn to their customers at less than 1%, because they were struggling with deflation. So both of them don't happen at the same time in the same country. So that is how it is. But there are realities all around the world.
Okay. Thank you very much, Doctor. Gracias Pastries, why would BOI insist that an MSME would have to clear her outstanding loan interest and principal due before granting the 9-month moratorium extension listed by the bank to ameliorate the impact of COVID-19 pandemic? If the business is struggling to survive due to the impact of COVID-19, where will it get the fund to clear these outstandings? Dr. Rislanudeen, this is for you. Let me just add one more. Can BOI reduce the interest and extend the tenure because of COVID-19? So we'll just take those two questions, sir, and before we continue.
Okay, thank you very much. The first question talked about those that are already having challenges, customers that are already having challenges with 9 months outstanding areas of interest unpaid, and so they cannot be able to access the moratorium. Well, the simple answer is the customers have either because the mere fact that there was an outstanding past due repayment before COVID-19 means that the customer already had a problem. And that problem is not something that I can speculate here. It may be self-imposed, self-inflicted, because there is a definition of repayment of loan. There is what they call willing and able. There is what they call unwilling and unable. There is what they call willing and unable. So I don't know where that particular customer fits in for me to be able to really provide a direct answer. But on a general note, it may be difficult because even at the point when the point of COVID, when you say they are past due of 9 months, means that the account has already must have been classified. And if account is classified, it's no longer a performing loan. The bank has already started taking a hit in terms of because of the business failure or challenges. It may be difficult to talk about moratorium of 3 months. What will even the moratorium of 3 months do to a customer that has already had, whether with or without the moratorium, has not paid for 9 months? So this is this can only be clearly answered when you have a specific situation where you can understand whether that customer has fallen into either a willing and able customer. That means he wants to repay, but he doesn't have the resources. He already had challenges before COVID-19, or willing and unwilling and unable, or willing or unwilling but able. That means that customer has the resources, but he was not willing to repay. So you have to understand where that particular customer fits in before you can be able to provide a specific resolution to the matter. Secondly, is issue of whether because of in the midst of the pandemic, interest rate can be reviewed. Yes, interest has already been reviewed, and interest can be reviewed based on the cost of funds of the bank. Take note of the fact that Bank of Industry is meant for you. Bank of Industry is a development finance bank, the pioneer and the most successful, the only. It is for you. And like I said in my presentation, the raising the tar of having Bank of Industry is not to make profit. So profit motive that you find that is driving the urge to keep or jack up interest in a deposit money bank is non-existent as far as Bank of Industry is concerned. So if whatever you a customer is charged is simply meant to ensure that the bank survive, so that it can thrive, so that it can give out more loans, so that those money that are repaid can be given to others. It's not made to make any profit. So if there is underlying imperative to reduce interest rate, the bank will do it. But take note of that fundamental fact that the bank is there for you. It is not meant to make any profit on you. What it is primarily interested in is for your business to grow, so that you can, in your own small way, support income generation, support employment in our economy, and on a general note, support the growth of Nigerian economy. That's the primary motive of Bank of Industry, not interest. We're not a deposit money bank. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. There's this from Anonymous. He's saying, good morning, Doctor and other speakers. The two speakers are actually doctors. So please, what is the duration for a company search to be conducted in BOI? Because according to my state officer, they're still waiting for my company search, which has been sent for over a month. Please, what is the modality and duration for this search to be conducted and received? Then another person is asking, is BOI asking if BOI does disburse CBN facilities, how someone who already has running facility with BOI access this? Sure, this is a BOI customer. Then, Doctor, you have those two questions. I want to just, okay, yes. Comment, I guess, from one of our customers, Mrs. Bosse Ogunsowo. This is truly customer-friendly webinar from BOI. Kudos to you guys. The timely palliative was also an encouragement in the dark days of being holed up in the house due to the pandemic. Thank you very much, madam. Over to you, doctor. Those 2 questions before we continue. But everybody needs to know that we're quickly rounding up. And okay, if you have any other further questions, can actually be sent to customercare@boi.ng. But we'll take the ones that we already have now. Over to you, doctor.
Quickly on the issue of delays in searches, I think I responded to this earlier on, but by way of a recap, I will just need to further add that it may be specific challenge and it may be general challenge because of the time, the COVID time. Maybe the external solicitor had some challenges getting the results out from the CAC and so on, knowing fully well that there are challenges in working now because of the respect for NCDC protocol and so on. So, but if it is something that has passed the real time, really 30 days or more, I think you need to get across to through the customer care so that we can look at this situation on that specific peculiarity. And if it is a challenge that we need to address as a bank, we learn from that experience. And if it is a challenge that is exogenous to the bank, it's a challenge that is outside the bank, is maybe relating to either the external solicitor himself or herself, or from the Corporate Affairs Commission, we can be able to provide a cogent response. On an existing customer that has facility with the bank and he wants to access CPN intervention, but I think it's very simple. What you need to do is get across to your relationship officer or the state manager, get the guidelines, and do the process that you have already been used to. I think your own situation is a much simpler. Your question is much simpler. I will have a much simpler response. You already have an existing facility with the bank, and it is being repaid efficiently as at when due. Everybody is happy with you, and you want to access CBN, we will be happy to support you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We also have, okay, what is BOI doing to get nicer risk coverage and commercial bank guarantee hit-free for borrowers to access them easily? Then a second one from Love Machine Global Concept. He said, kudos to this webinar. This event is really helpful. Please, I want to know when CBN is likely to disburse money for BOI for small scale businesses like they do for NISAL Microfinance Bank with easy accessibility. Dr. Rislanudeen, these questions are for you.
We do engage deposit money banks on situations where their customers wanted to access facility, and which implies that they need a bank guarantee. So we always provide support by directly interfacing with them. If there are any issues that they want, if there are any unresolved issues in terms of the modalities of the loans, the fees, and so on, we always relate directly with the deposit money banks to ensure that our customers get the BGs. And this is the same with NISAL's de-risking guarantees. The whole essence of NISA is to de-risk the lending, and they have been doing that. We have been engaging them, we have been talking to them, and I'm definite that they will also support Bank of Industry's initiative, because the whole essence of NISA is to de-risk agriculture, and we lend to agriculture as well. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. For every other person sending in questions that we can't take because we're gradually rounding up, please contact customer care. Customer care is one word, customercare@boi.ng. And also for those of you in terms of, wanting some specifics, you can also send email to Business Development Group, Business Development Group is one word at boi.ng for other inquiries too. We can't thank you enough for joining us. We know that everybody is very busy, but just like I said earlier, the Bank of Industry, Nigeria's foremost development finance institution, cannot watch its customers, wallow in this new challenges that has, been thrown upon all of us, and that's why we're organizing this webinar. If you have questions, like I said, send them to those email addresses. Mr. Mike Esotu he's in charge of SMEs in the southern part of the country. He's the one who is going to give us, the closing remarks. And this is just the first of many more. We can't thank you enough, but Mr. Mike Esotu will do justice to saying thank you to all of you. Mr. Mike Esotu, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I believe you all had a fruitful session, even though I think the allotted time was not enough. In this session, the topic of the paper was thriving in the new normal, economic and business outlook. I observed your participation and questions, so I can conclude the purpose of the session has been completely accomplished. I'd like to pay my deep respect to all of you for your positive participation. I hope what you've learned at this session will help you a lot in your business. Please recall the presenter spoke about a number of things. He dimensioned COVID-19 disruptions and specifically dwelt on the following. 1, what SMEs must do to survive. That's intensify digitization, maximize data on customers, plus communication with everyone, customers, shareholders, employees, stakeholders, etc. Secondly, he also spoke on what SMEs should do to adapt to COVID-19. He mentioned what SMEs must also do to recover, and he concluded by advising SMEs to do what the market says. That is, we should always put the customer first and go beyond our customers' expectations. Our products must appeal to our customers. So on behalf of Bank of Industry, I would like to express my appreciation to everyone for participating in this webinar. We all need to embrace this new normal. Thank you all for being here today and taking time to patiently listen to the presentation. It's been a pleasure being with you all. Dr. Adedipe, I thank you for doing justice to the topic. Your presentation drew the audience in and held their attention for about 45 minutes. Thank you for speaking to us today. We enjoyed your presentation. I also thank Dr. Rislanudeen for his recap on BOI's intervention and forward-looking initiatives. I'm sure our customers are better informed. My gratitude also goes to my colleagues, the organizers of this program. I'll end by thanking God for keeping all of us safe and making it possible for us to participate in this webinar. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And just like I said earlier, please, if you have questions, we're sorry if we're not able to take your questions. We have so many questions we could not answer. But customer care at boi.ng, send in your question. Business Development Group at boi.ng, send in your questions, inquiries, and then we have our website. Go to our website. The customer care numbers are there displayed on the website. You can be sure that for every question, for every inquiries, we'll answer you. Thank you very much, and expect us to send more links to you. This is not going to be the only webinar we're going to be having. We're going to have this just the beginning of many series, and Dr. Adedipe, I'm sure, will also feature in some of the webinars coming up by the special grace of God. Thank you all for joining us. See you again next time. Bye.